Welcome to the STARTALK modules on the curriculum development process for student programs. This is the third of 3 modules. Stage 3 has the following learning targets. Participants will be able to explain the connection between the program can-do statements, the performance assessment tasks, and the lesson can-do statements. They will be able to identify resources that will provide comprehensible input before asking for output. And they will be able to develop or support the development of Stage 3 lesson can-do statements that focus on both input and output. In Stage 1 of backward design, program can-do statements were created. In Stage 2, the performance assessment tasks were identified. Now, in Stage 3, the learning experiences and resources that will guide learning plans will be identified. Stage 3 has 3 key components: identification of lesson can-do statements that show how learners will incrementally move toward the performance assessment task, creation of a sequence of lesson can-do statements that allow learners to demonstrate comprehension before moving to output tasks, and finally, selection of authentic resources that will be used to provide comprehensible input. Developing a lesson can-do statement is a bit like looking at babushka dolls. The babushka dolls shown here provide a visual frame of reference for the development of lesson can-do statements. The largest of the nesting dolls represents the performance indicators that were selected by the program in Stage 1. The next tier represents the program's can-do statements also developed in Stage 1 and the performance assessment tasks that were created in Stage 2. Finally, the smallest dolls represent each of the lesson can-do statements that will be needed for students to be successful when doing the assessment tasks. Let's consider the initial thought process that is involved in creating lesson can-do statements. The interpersonal program can-do statement shown here requires that students talk about places or regions that they and others want to visit. They may be talking about what they can do in places, the souvenirs they buy in places, what they think about a place or what they eat in a certain place, or why they go to a certain place. They may be talking about where someone is from or where the place is, what they can see there, where they're going, what they're packing when they go there. The scope of the conversation is limited by the age of the learner, the proficiency level, and the amount of time available for learning. Less is more, and it allows the focus to be on what students can actually learn and do by the end of the program. That leads to the question that must be asked for the interpretive mode. What resources will provide the impact necessary to lead to output? If students are going to be talking about where they are going, in this picture for example, what they will see, what they will do, what they shall pack, then they will have to engage in the interpretive mode. They will need to understand, interpret, and analyze what is heard, read, or viewed on a variety of topics. What is important as students work with the interpretive mode in reading, listening, and/or viewing is that they have multiple opportunities for input so they can use what is acquired in the interpretive mode when producing language in the other modes. Tasks such as those shown here will be used when working in the interpretive mode. With clear expectations of what is expected in terms of output, the program is ready to look carefully at the program can-do statement and develop those lesson can-do statements. If you look at this outline, you will notice that there are 3 interpretive tasks that are listed here. I can recognize directions to locate places on a map. I can identify which specific region or product that image is from. I can identify places in products when I hear them described. Those interpretive tasks must be in place where students are given an opportunity to demonstrate comprehension of language before being asked to produce language in the interpersonal statement that you now see. I can ask and answer questions to find out where a product or an image can be found. This may not quite be enough to lead your learners to the program can-do statement, and additional input may be required. I can identify where others want to go based on information they share before they are asked in the interpersonal mode, to ask questions to find out where others want to go and why, or to give answers about where they want to go and why. The lesson can-do sequence has now been created that will lead them to where they can create that program can-do statement, or where they can accomplish that program can-do statement. You are looking at the template version of what was just described. Here, programs are asked to copy the program can-do statement from stage 1, to copy the performance assessment task from stage 2, with the visual reminder of what the overall goal is and how evidence will be collected that that goal has been met. The program can then create a meaningful sequence of lesson can-do statements that move incrementally toward the performance assessment task. This is the bulk of the stage 3 template work, and there are several questions that programs and team leaders will use to review this work. Do the lesson can-do statements break the program can-do statements into the steps necessary to complete the performance assessment task? Is each lesson can-do statement correctly labeled with the appropriate mode of communication? Do learners have sufficient opportunities to acquire language in the interpretive mode before being asked to produce language in the interpersonal or presentational mode? With 2 additional questions. Are the lesson can-do statements appropriate for the age and developmental level of the learners? And do the lesson can-do statements suggest an integration of language, culture, and/or content? At this point, all of the learning goals are in place. This is where decisions must be made about the best resources to use in the interpretive mode, keeping in mind the STARTALK principle that requires programs to adapt and use age-appropriate materials. Consider the clip art image of the castle shown here. There is nothing wrong with it, but it is a missed opportunity to embed culture by using an authentic image. Using culturally authentic images and materials serves to create interest and spark curiosity. Limit the use of materials created for language learning and use them only when appropriate authentic resources aren't available or can't be adapted. One final caution when deciding what materials to use. Input must be comprehensible and meaning-bearing. Comprehensible because learners must understand most of what the speaker or writer is saying for language learning to occur. If not, they may become easily frustrated. And meaning-bearing because that input must contain a message that the learners want and need to understand, with some clear communicative intent in that message. The review questions for the selection of materials are simpler. Has an effort been made to incorporate authentic texts and materials? And finally, has the program named specific resources, the title of a story or a song or a movie that will be used, links to specific collections of images and such? You may remember this slide from the previous modules. In Stage 1, there were 6 program can-do statements. In Stage 2, 6 performance assessment tasks. Now in Stage 3, over 30 lesson can-do statements. Those lesson can-do statements transfer directly to the learning plans and become 30 or more checks for learning. The good news is that those lesson can-do statements have now been written in Stage 3 of the curriculum template and transfer directly to the learning plan. Those 30 plus checks for learning that will be created when writing the learning plans then transfer into the number of learning experiences that a program believes are necessary so that students can successfully meet the original program can-do statements written in Stage 1. This is the time when you may wish to complete a check for learning on Stage 3, and we invite you to complete that self-check quiz that accompanies this video presentation. Should you need more support, the Curriculum Development Resource landing page is shown here, and the model curricula are also there for your information either to use or adapt or as samples to consult when developing your own curriculum. This concludes the modules on the curriculum development process, and thank you very much for all that you do to support STARTALK programs.